welcome to another episode of Guess That Record. I am your host, Jackson Reed. This is the show where we talk about music and try to figure out which album I pulled from my collection. Thanks again for tuning in to another episode. Our guest is a music manager currently working for 1916 Enterprises. He represents artists like Tommy Genesis and songwriters like James Maddocks, who has written songs for artists like Morgan Wallen. I'm super excited to welcome Ruchir Mohan to Guess That Record. How are you doing, Ruchir?
I am doing good. Just got into the studio right now. You can't see the studio in front of me because I'm at the desk, but we have a little office, and yeah, just made it in for the day. Excited to get into this.
Absolutely. And where are we talking to you from today?
Studio City, California. This is we recently took over the old office for Good Boy Records, which is an awesome company my friend owns. And yeah, we were playing golf and he's like, "Oh, I'm moving down the street further on Ventura Boulevard, and we have this dope studio office, which is small but very lovable. And we're looking for someone to take over our lease. So we took it over at 1916, and it's a temporary but great solution because a great spot to have our writers write out of and just have that accessible to people."
For sure, yeah. And, it's great to have you on the show today. You're actually the second manager we've had on the show. So I'm excited to get your perspective on what that's like.
Thank you. Yeah, great to be here. Thank you for having me.
For sure. Now, I always love to start out by asking, what was the first song or the first album that you remember hearing that made you get into music?
I'd say there were two songs I really remember, or one album and one song that really moved the needle into music for me. They were at two different points of my life. I'd say as far as albums go, My Chemical Romance's Three Cheers for Revenge. I remember all I grew up, like when I was really young, all I listened to was like dad rock and, just all the shit my dad put onto my old iPod Classic. All the music he like preloaded onto my iPod Classic, and like I just listened to that. And it was all I heard. And then some old hip hop my brother was into at the time. So like, my iPod ranged from like Bruce Springsteen and like Bon Jovi to Eminem and 50 Cent and like really nothing in between. Um, and this, a friend of mine in like the fourth grade or something put me on to My Chemical Romance, and I was like, "Oh, I wonder what's that." And I went and bad to say it now, illegally downloaded on LimeWire. Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge, or Three Cheers for Revenge, and it was it blew my mind. It was like my first time really listening to like anything that's even close to a modern rock opera, and I just loved it so much. And I think from that moment, like I just really, instead of listening to music, started interacting with music a lot more. Um, and I'd say scrolling like all the way down the line, I think the record that solidified that I wanted to be in music growing up was Language by Porter Robinson. It was a song. And it was the first live concert I went to on my own volition, like on my own dime, on my own, like from my own motivation. It wasn't, again, like a Bryan Adams concert my dad took me to. And I was like 13, maybe 14, and Porter Robinson was opening for Tiesto at the time. And I was in Hong Kong, so not a lot of concerts really came by. So everything was like, I had to jump at it. And yeah, I just remember seeing and experiencing that record live. And it was like right before EDM and electronic really became the zeitgeist in like 2015 to 17. And I was just like, wow, like I want to feel like this for the rest of my life. I want to, and like, by that point I was already producing. And like I said, I was more interactive as a music listener. So just hearing that record, I was like, this is incredible. And I'd heard nothing like it. And just like the layering of the super saws and everything. And yeah, it changed my life. I was like, wow, I will do this in some capacity. And like at that time, I thought it was being a DJ, which I'm not. But it just really resonated with me. And then I think everything I did from that point onwards at like 13, 14 years old was like with the end goal of working in music somehow. So I'd say those are the two records that really immediately were bookmarks in my life.
Yeah, yeah. And it was funny you mentioned like what was on your iPod there because I Bruce Springsteen is actually like my favorite artist of all time.
Oh,
So
no way.
that's cool that you had him on there.
No way. No
hmm
way. I love that.
Now, you kind of were talking about like, maybe I was going to be a DJ or something like that. But like, were you ever a musician at all, or have you always sort of been more focused on the business side of things?
Yeah, so I started off actually as a producer when I was or DJ in like the eighth grade. I started as a producer in the eighth grade, I want to say, in DJ. I joined the DJ club just because I just moved to Hong Kong at the time and like was trying to make friends, and that was the most accessible thing. And then through that, I started DJing in nightclubs, and I wanted to, just again interact more and more with music, and DJing wasn't sufficient. It just was playing other people's stuff out loud. And I taught myself Ableton also around the age of like 13, 14. Um, that did fine, I didn't really take anything too seriously. And then my family moved again when I was 16, I want to say. And at that point, I couldn't play in nightclubs anymore because the rules and regulations in Dubai were a lot stricter. And because of that, I was just I wasn't able to play in nightclubs anymore, so I picked up producing more seriously and I started sharing my music online. And this was like the peak time download and everything in between. And I just started putting my music up on SoundCloud, and a couple things got some steam. Like it was nothing crazy, like a couple million plays, but I was like, oh my God, like I could really do this. And at the time I got a record deal offer from like a ex-US major branch, right? Um, and it was like the coolest thing ever to me. Like I was like, my life's about to change. Like, I'm about to be the next Taylor Swift. Of course I wasn't, but it was cool, and it just like pulled back the curtain on so many things. It's like even just to go from being just the kid who makes beats on Ableton and like plays the occasional nightclub to then interacting with how to market a record or like receiving just a simple, it was like an EP licensing deal, right? Receiving something that simple just pulls back the curtain and makes you realize, oh, there's like really a machine that goes behind all of this. And I was still in high school. Like they don't teach you what an A&R is. They don't teach you what a digital marketing department is. None of that. So it was a lot of trial by fire, and I think that's what sparked my passion for the business side. And down the line, I think that little project I had became more of a vessel for me to try out fun things on the marketing side or try out new techniques I learned on Photoshop and just give it a whirl myself. So yeah, I definitely started on the music side. I was fortunate enough, as I got to college, I went to the Bandier program in upstate New York, and I just got to meet a lot more people being out here as opposed to being in Dubai for high school. Um, as I got to the Bandier program, I was fortunate enough through happenstance and a series of events as my our DJ career took like a little bit of steam. I met this incredible songwriter, Explicit, who was, nice enough to mentor me and really show me the broader scheme of what it means to be a songwriter, a producer, what publishing was, and just really took me under his wing for like 6, 7 months. And like that, I think that was the moment I realized I didn't want to produce, right? Because I see someone like that do the thing and it's so impressive. And I was like, oh, I'd rather spend time elevating and empowering really dope people because like my heart's not fully in this in the same way yours is. And yeah, through that point I just started working with his manager who hired me right out of college.
hmm
Um so funny story.
Yeah, yeah. As an aside, it sounded like, or it sounds like you grew up all over the world. Is that correct?
Yeah, I had to bounce around a lot.
Is that just through family and that sort of thing?
Yeah, my dad worked in the hospitality industry and just was really into travel and moving. So even before I was born, my family moved around a bunch. Like I was born in India. I grew up in Hong Kong and Dubai, and then I moved to Syracuse for school. And yeah, then I was in Miami with X, and then now in LA. And yeah, before I was born, my parents were in Bali, Indonesia. I mean, Bali that is in Indonesia, but like Bali, Australia, Japan, like
Mhm.
just, I guess, a family of nomads. So I was fortunate to be able to move around a bunch growing up.
For sure. Yeah. This episode of Guess That Record is sponsored by Marvel Marketing. Marvel Marketing is an award winning digital marketing company headquartered in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Working with clients in different industries from all over North America, including Canada, the United States, and Mexico. Marvel Marketing services include website design and development, website maintenance, search engine optimization, public relations services, and social media management, amongst others. To find out more, visit marvelmarketing.ca. This episode of Guess That Record is sponsored by Guitarworks. One of Canada's top independent music stores for over 30 years, Guitarworks carries a huge selection of musical instruments from the biggest brands in music, including Gibson, Fender, Martin, Yamaha, and Paul Reed Smith. Visit any of their 2 Calgary locations or shop online at guitarworks.ca and join the Guitar Perks program to earn money back with every purchase. Guitarworks, your total guitar store. This episode of Guess That Record is also sponsored by Recordland, home to the largest selection of music in Canada. Buy, sell, and trade tapes, CDs, and vinyl. Located in Calgary's Inglewood neighborhood on 9th Avenue Southeast, visit them in person or on Instagram at Recordland Calgary. And so now you are currently a part of 1916 Enterprises. I think it'd be great to share a bit about what 1916 does for the listeners out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really like the layout of how 1916 is structured as a company, and I think that's what drew me to wanting to work with them. So, on its front line, we are a management and publishing company. So, we have about, all in all, I want to say just shy of 20 clients across management and publishing. And because we're a smaller company, like we have the same high touch approach as A&Rs for publishing clients as we do for management clients. And then outside of the management and publishing front, we're also a ventures company, but we're a ventures company that's really focused on empowering the workflow for both music executives and music creators for tomorrow. So it's like a lot of the ventures are very music tech focused or just empowering like creator businesses focused. Like we have been partners in stuff like Legends Only or Slumbo Labs that are like more frontline labels and um, managing companies that exist on their own rights, but we're also partners or venture like owners in Off Top, Patch Bay, Chordal. And these are all things that are not only aiming at reducing the friction points of how you run a modern music business. You know, like Off Top is smarter file sharing for producers. Chordal is a sync music marketplace that makes it a lot easier to get a sync and like demystifies a lot of it. Patch Bay is a source of truth for splits and deal tracking, and it keeps, you know, your business manager and lawyer in step. So I think what I like about it is while we take a really hands-on, you know, small mom and pop shop approach to developing and cultivating talent, in the background we're like really trying to take big strides in the technology that allows you to do more.
Mhm.
And that just allows us to focus on our clients more. So it's really cool. And yeah, on the management and publishing side, we yeah mostly do writers and producers. Or launching our artist arm, got a couple artists signed to us, which I currently oversee. And yeah, it's been awesome so far.
Yeah. So you're like what exactly are you overseeing yourself right now?
So I'm overseeing basically the core artist management team. So we have a team of about 3 people. I Both the artists at the company are under me, and I rep about 6 producers. I want to say 5. I forget the exact number, but I can list all their names out. I swear. But yeah, so I oversee basically all the artist facing stuff, and then I split responsibility for basically half the writer producer roster.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And one probably I would assume maybe the biggest artist you're looking after right now is Tommy Genesis. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think it would be great to share for the listeners a bit about her and how you ended up working with her.
Yeah, so Tommy is incredible. Tommy is like such an artist and such a voice for, you know, everything from like just she's such a voice. I don't know how to put it. I've been a fan of hers for so long, and she's one of those people that is culturally such a magnet and is so effortless in how she executes things. Um, but yeah, she started her career with Awful Records way back in the day. I want to say like 2017, 18, and has been such a champion and curator of not just musical artists, but like artists in general. She's been an early adopter in fashion. She's been an early adopter in like media as a whole. And a lot of people have known her and seen her in the news cycle for either curatorial collaborations or just like true collaborations. And I met Tommy having been familiar with her music for a while. I want to say like October, September last year. And she was like, oh, like I want to do the most autobiographical, risky thing of my career. And like, what Tommy has popularized is music that's so comfortable, music that's she's so comfortable with and like is so comfortable and effortless, and things that back when Tommy first was coming up, like not a lot of especially women in rap were doing was like just like talking super openly about sexuality and like not commercializing it or you know tailoring it for the male gaze. It was like for herself, and I think that's what makes so many people feel like emboldened and empowered by Tommy's music. And yeah, and like it was awesome, but like all that to say, when Tommy and I met, she's like, I want to do something that remains true to me, remains authentic, remains autobiographical. But now that I'm, into my like on my fourth album, I'm a couple years into my career, like I'm getting to my first headline tour. Like I really want to talk my shit about me. I want to talk my shit about growing up biracial. I want to talk shit about growing up Indian. I want to talk shit about growing up as an immigrant. Like all those things. And she's like, yeah, I just want to like make this record for it's called Genesis and it just came out. I want to make this record for young biracial immigrant kids. And like my fiance is white. And I was like, that's my kids. Like I never felt represented in like rap or rock or punk. I loved it so much growing up as an Indian guy, right? And like especially like an Indian guy with the perspective of like not being from India. Like there's a whole branch of Southeast Asians that are not from or don't live there, right? And Indians specifically. And I was like, wow, this is the album for my kids. And like I was just remember the first time hearing it. And like obviously she heard the albums from the perspective of like her as a queer biracial woman. And I was just like, you're just saying some like really truthful shit about the Indian experience outside of India. You're saying some real shit about what it means to be an immigrant in today's day and age, what it means to be biracial in today's day and age, what it means to just be like brown in today's day and age. And I just think that's so important. And like I get out of bed every day to empower things like that and to work on things like that. And it really excites me. And it wasn't some like base level shit that she was talking about. Like she was really getting into things. And it wasn't like trying to talk about politics we have no stake in as Indians that don't live there. It was like talking about the experience of being Indian. Um, and the aesthetics of the album were so carefully curated and like really spending the last 6 or 7 months bringing it to life has been one of the most fulfilling things I've ever worked on for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And so it all kind of came together pretty fast then if you just met her for the first time last year then.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, she had a somewhat finished album, no visuals, like none of the budgeting or whatever was done. It was just kind of a collection of songs and an idea and a title. And, I am a very project-driven person. And I think I work in like large sprints and like there's a seasonality and like when things are on, when things are off, obviously in music. Um, and yeah, so it's not like we were starting the albums first from scratch, but we started the visuals from scratch. Like the whole clearance process was at square none. Um, and the album was like unmixed, unmastered. A couple of the demos still had to be finished. A couple of verses were open, and we got the work. I spent like 10, 12 listens with the album. Like I'd be playing Mario Kart with my fiance for and just like listening to the album
Mhm.
on repeat. And my fiance works in marketing at a record label. And we just spitball ideas for the rollout back and forth and just like really got into things. And going into the holidays, I began the clearance process. I helped put in the last song that was called Homebound on the album. Um, and yeah, just stepped on the gas. Seriously, it was such a sprint. Like we worked an insane week trying to get like the True Blue video up, working with like Paris Global's super limited avails. Um, but yeah, it was honestly, I got to do it over and over and over again. Like it happens fast, but it also happened with like a total village. Like my day-to-day Mikey is incredible, just like holds things down, make sure Tommy gets places on time, makes sure Tommy is awake on time, make sure posts go up on time, make sure her calendar's in check, really good day-to-day stuff. We have this awesome girl on digital Sanj who like really got all the assets up in time, like did the edits in time. Our label team, did the best they could. And yeah, just it was all systems go. And I think for the first 3 months, it was just Tommy and myself. And obviously my fiance, like doing the little puppeteering behind the scenes on the marketing front. And then it was dope because as Tommy really started to pick up, I got more people in on the team and we just really made that final push to get the album out.
Yeah, for sure. And it came out like last week, right? Like it's brand new.
Hot off the press.
Yeah. And it was interesting because I saw it's her first album on Ultra Records.
Yep.
Did you oversee that deal to get her onto that label?
I did not.
Okay,
No.
gotcha.
That was and I think that's what made the clearance in all candor, Ultra is great. Um and they're an awesome label. Like I grew up consuming stuff on Ultra Records and Ultra Music Festival. But I think the whole rollout started with a problem statement is like, how do we deliver an alternative rap indie album? And how do we really get the thing done when Tommy's been building so much repertoire and dance music and we're signed to effectively a dance singles label, which is not a knock on them. It's just what they're so incredible at. And we've done dance singles with them. Um, and all kudos to them for like working through things with us and like delivering an album so avant-garde. Um, but I didn't oversee that deal, but I did oversee the just whole rollout. Unfortunately, her last manager kind of left right as that deal started,
Mm.
which sucks. But I was fortunate enough to step in. We got some great collabs as like build up moments. We had the thing with Nessa. We had a record with Victoria DeAngelis. We had a record with Marlon Hofstadt. We had a record with Keto, really warmed up and primed her audience, and then just took the swing with the album. So I've been fortunate to work most of the deal.
Yeah, for sure. And then, yeah, you kind of alluded to it earlier, but another kind of big part of the company is like representing songwriters and producers. And of course, one of the more noteworthy songwriters is James Maddocks. How did you get started with him?
Yeah, I mean, James is incredible. He's such a like he just has this ear for simplicity and melody and symmetry in music that I think is so rare. So James, I met through my other client and business partner, Young Lan, who I operate a business with. Um, I've known Lan for years now. I've known Lan for a minute, and Lan is like a vet in the hip hop space. He has seen and done the thing for the last 10 years. And, we've stayed in touch and we've always wanted to work together. And Lan's been developing and mentoring and, helping James produce out his career. And I want to say pretty much right as I started 1916 and, I was kind of given free reign to sign what I wanted to sign. Lan was one of the first calls I made because, like, I grew up listening to like Fetty Wap and Roddy Ricch and other stuff like that Lan had notably made. And I was like, hey man, how can we get in business together? And what started out as just a management conversation, I think Lan saw that I believed in the larger vision for him as an executive and him as a developer of talent. And like the story wasn't being told. And like, it was just early days, but I really saw that for him. And Lan and I really hit it off. He's like, I want you to meet these two producers I've been developing. James Maddocks and Felipe Spain. And we all met for dinner, and like James was the sweetest kid, and like we've already known Lan's a star, right? But I remember walking out of that dinner, and my colleague Amanda was like, "Oh, James is like they're all incredible, but James is like what? He was like 20, I think, when we met him, like so young." And she's like, "Oh, like he's like yet to really catch his stride." And I remember Len and I had a conversation, and I was like, "Hey, let's just really get into this together, and let's screw management. Let's like build a whole business together. Let's be partners. Like I will manage your clients with and for you." Like he's such a great executive when it comes to like moving creative and A&R, and I think I'm a great executive when it comes to just like the nitty-gritty of operations management and creative, of course, but like I think I bring a very distinct skill set to the table, merging those two and like business development for producers. And yeah, so instead of just like signing land, we launched a partnership. And that included Lan, James Maddocks, Felipe Spain, who's also just so gifted. He's a touring guitarist for Shaquib Town, which is a huge Colombian band. And then he's also a dope producer working on stuff like Maxo Cream, Kevin Gates, just like real hard hitting rap. And yeah, so I know you asked about James, but yeah, and that was all the time when things were very early for him on the Morgan stuff. And then yeah, I can't lie and say like him blowing up on Cowgirls and it like that record was a force of nature. I had nothing to do with that, unfortunately. Um, but like I think when I started working with him, couple months later, Cowgirls started picking up on radio, and then like that we just tried our best to like start cultivating the legend of James Maddocks. But yeah, the kind of all not possible without Land. And like we'd been talking about getting in business together for years. I'd been listening to the music, and yeah, I'd say that's the long short answer. But I just wanted to add like, I'd hear Land sending me demo packs like, yeah, I'm building out a producer team. And I was like, this is dope. And I remember I'd keep asking him for music. And when I came to 1916 and we first had that call, I was like, yo, like, update me with a new folder. Like, send me some new stuff from you and your team. Like, I have what I've had. And I think it had been like 4 to 6 months since we'd spoken. And I was just like, dude, I was so blown away. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, y'all were good before, but like, y'all like really, really good now. Um, and yeah, just they're all good people. I really like them. And like, yeah, everything is fortunately worked out, but like James Land, they're all not great clients of mine, but great friends and fortunate to be working with them. And like for James, it's so early in his story and like we got him an awesome publishing setup. We got him a great situation with a mentor. Aside from Land, obviously. Really have been socializing him to the writing circle. He got a bunch more on the Morgan album that just came out post One Thing at a Time. He's like really picking up his stride, and I think what's so exciting for me is like he's 22, like he's so in the infancy of his career. Um, but yeah, great dude, love the kid. Very fortunate to be working with him.
For sure, yeah. And you kind of mentioned it there, but yeah, for that anyone who doesn't know, he wrote some songs with Morgan Wallen. And I was kind of curious, like what's the process for setting up? And it doesn't have to be that example specifically, but like what's the process of setting up a songwrite, like bringing your songwriter to an artist and saying, hey, we want to pair you guys up.
I think it goes a couple different ways. I think for me, I have always been very artist focused in my approach. And I always start by trying to get my writer producers as much direct coverage and as direct of a relationship with the artists. Um, so like I want to use a clear example to make it make sense, but like I will always start with like, "Hey, I met this artist, you should get on FaceTime with them." Or like, "Hey, I met this A&R, you should just go get coffee with this artist." Like I think because with producer writers being suppliers and the artists being like the licensors and the sellers of the music, there is like that's just the easiest way to put yourself in the ring. Or I'll have my clients be like, yo, get coffee with the executive producer. I think that's like such a better use of time than there's a mentality and train of thought of like trying to piece together the perfect puzzle, which I don't disagree with. But I also think it's kind of awkward throwing three strangers in a room and expecting them to like make music. And I say that because I produced for 10 years of my life and like I still dabble and I still make with friends, and like it's awkward, dude. You can't just throw strangers in a room who might have vastly different experiences, lives, opinions, concerns, and expect them to creatively mesh and like be vulnerable with each other. And so I'll always try to start with a social like link up, be that a FaceTime, a Zoom, or just a coffee. And then from then I'll be like, okay, you like him. Let's put a room together. Let's put in a writer you like. And a rule I've always tried to follow is if a session is not just the artist and the writer producer, but if it's a artist, writer, and a third, it could be a co-writer, co-producer, whatever. I want to make sure that at least two out of the three people in the room know each other. Like, I will never put complete strangers in a room and be like, see what happens.
Mhm.
So that's one. I'd say the other one is I work backwards from people's goals. Like, that's how it works in like country or pop. You know, you try to get the angle directly in with the artist. In hip hop, it's like really just trying to network with producers and like for James, I will just like again, I try to really be out there and I'll just throw him on text. I'll be like, "Oh, you want to work with Leon Thomas?" Well, like Leon Thomas is not going to get in the studio with you. I'm sure he's busy, but like I know his producer. I know who did Mutt. Like I'll just throw you guys on text. Like send him records all day. Like send him loops. Send him just start it. And like James is in France for a lot of the year, so like that's what we got to do. Um, so that's the approach with hip hop. I just try to like I mean, zooming out, I think I look at it more from a macro scale as network building for my clients, as opposed to like songwriting sessions. Because I think those happen if the network and the relationship that it's predicated on is strong. Because I'm also so abundantly confident in my clients that they have the know-how and the hustle to like take a relationship I give them and be like, okay, cool, we like each other. I think this writer would be cool, Ruchir. Can you make it happen? Like, you know, obviously while my job is to be creative, my job is to empower and facilitate ultimately. And my job is not to enforce my creative opinion ever. Um, so yeah, it's I just have a lot of belief, and I think something I love about my roster, be it James, Jack, Felipe, Lan, they all have a clear vision of like what they want, whom they want to pull in. So it's like for me, I just got to make the connection. I got to be like, hey, here's the producer, writer, artist you should be meeting. Here's what I think would be cool in the room. If they're traveling to an unknown market, that's when I'd say I get more in like the song puzzle math stuff, right? Like when I was first planting seeds in Nashville for my roster, a lot of it was just like, I'll try to put in whatever artist I can, but like chances are you won't know anyone in the room, but like I think it's worth it because you're, you know, expanding better in your circle. But in that circumstance, again, I'll try to make sure the co-writer and the artist know each other, you know? Like
Yeah.
two out of three people should know each other. And like, you know, to that point, we did a camp. I organized it with my colleague Amanda in Nashville in March this year. And our whole goal was just connecting the writer producer roster. We flew out our management clients, we flew out our publishing clients, we put them in a great hotel, and just did a week of sessions where we had a gauntlet of like 30 plus artists and just new writers, new producers. And again, the whole focus was less, oh, get us 30 hits. The focus was go meet people. Like we will make it. This is literally speed dating is how we want you to see this. Like build your network out. So then seeds from that trip I'm seeing are growing into plants now with like little executive production projects coming up from intros I made then or like little songs getting cut now. Like things take time. They need to really like is the word gestate? I don't know. They need to like
Yeah.
build, you know, take their time. Um And so it's cool. So I like really just focus on network building and like sessions. The first time you meet someone, the chances are the song's going to be like trash because you just are building the flow with each other. Or you won't even get a record out. And like my focus is never, oh, get the song out. My focus is like go make a new friend, like go meet someone. And if that goes well, we will talk about facilitating getting records out of this situation. That's when I get into like deadlines, co-writers, this, that, blah, blah, blah. But it all starts with just like meet people.
Yeah.
Go, the three of you get in a room. And that's what I love about Nashville too, is like they have a good balance of because the sessions are pretty short compared to LA of like we'll get the song out and then we can go get beers together. Like it leaves time to do both. But in LA, I think especially when there's no like you aren't walking in with equal splits and you aren't, you know, doing this, that, and the next thing, um, going getting beers after and like you're not focused, you might just finish sometimes, like a song and around, but it's sometimes in LA, like it's not about getting the song, right? It's just about hanging out with someone, building a connection, and like that's why at that point, I sometimes I'll just book a coffee. Like it doesn't need to be a whole thing.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And, kind of looking at everything you do, looking after artists, looking after people more on sort of the behind the scenes aspect of the business, what are the similarities and differences between that, you would say?
I don't need to coordinate glam for my producers, which is a big difference. I'd say there's a lot more moving pieces with artists as it pertains to the outward perception of their brand, of course, because they're outward facing brands. Um, but I'd honestly say the similarities, like, look, the differences are plentiful. Like, producers are a lot more focused on how you can, like, you need to have more of a delicate balance of keeping cash flow while back end money accumulates through publishing catalog. Whereas with artists, there's just a lot more things. There's brand deals, there's live, there's festivals, there's like pop outs at a nightclub where you go do X, Y, or Z. Like it's not as delicate of a balance as much as it's like learning what is the best pick for your brand. And of course, it's the same thing for producers where it's like you need to be careful in curating their collaborators so it doesn't hurt their brand. But I'd say the biggest similarity is for me and how I work is like whether you have to handle a million things for someone or 10, like you just need to have the same level of kindness, patience, empathy. Like I'd say the biggest similarity is just like they're all creatives. They're all here to create. They're not here to do like they're not wanting to do admin or like administer their PRO stuff and whatever. They're here to be creative. And I think the biggest similarity is like they all need to be treated with a level of transparency and oversight and collaboration when it comes to their business. Be that whether you're balancing the act of producer fees and publishing back end royalties or balancing the act of like 6 shoots and glam and this and that. And like, while that stuff's super intensive, it goes both ways, right? So I'd say the differences are plenty, but the similarities are the way you need to approach them, the transparency you need to have in the way you do business, and then also just like looking out for the bigger picture of what their brand is as a person,
Yeah.
right? And with artists, the brand can be separated from the person a little easier. With producers, a lot of times the brand is the person, unless you're like Metro Boomin,
Yeah,
where
for
you have a
sure.
brand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Ruchir, we are now entering into the guessing segment of this
Awesome.
podcast. So I'll explain the rules to you and any new listeners we may have. In this bag here is a record from my collection. I'm going to give you 3 clues about this album, and then we play a game of 20 questions to try and figure out what the album is. So, Ruchir Mohan, are you ready to guess that record?
Sure. Yes.
All right, here are your 3 clues. This record came out in the 2000s. It is the debut album for this artist, and it features 2 singles that reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Question 1.
2000s debut album for this artist and 2 singles that reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Okay, cool. Is the album made by a woman?
Yes. Question 2.
Okay. Does the album fall in the pop genre?
Yes. Question 3.
Does the album have any features on it?
I believe it does. Question 4.
Is the lead recording artist from the album still active?
Yes. Question 5.
Is the lead recording artist currently on tour?
I am not sure. She might be. Actually, yeah, I think she is.
Okay, cool.
Question 6.
Is the recording artist Lady Gaga?
It is. Question 7.
Is the album The Fame?
It is The Fame.
Let's go. One of my favorite albums ever. Wow.
Well, yeah, let's tell the listeners what you know about The Fame.
I mean, it is so iconic. I think like as a dance music fan, I think that was like I was telling you, like Porter Robinson was what like really got. Also, when you said two number ones, 2000s, I'm like, it's either I was like, it's got to be Gaga. Like, but yeah, when like I think there's a few artists that are so pioneering for electronic music that really shaped it into like the huge thing it became in the 2010s, that don't get enough credit. And I think despite getting a lot of credit, right? And I think that's Gaga and Rihanna. Like I think what they did in the late 2000s going into the 2010s like really paved the way now for like firstly like the mainstream dance and like big room and EDM and like Tomorrowland culture, but then also like as you progress way further forward into today's day and age, like hyper pop, rage music, like so much. And like there's so many sonics from like Gaga and Rihanna that went on to like really be imperative in the landscape to let artists like Kesha pop off, allow artists like I'm like really blanking on every single name right now, but like I see people like Sarah Landry killing it in culture right now. Like there's such a direct through line between what Gaga did in 2008 for the reason Sarah Landry can like thrive right now. And I think it's like one of the most consequential albums, if not the most consequential album ever. And like I think at the time what Gaga was doing as it pertained to being outspoken and being um an advocate for, like this is like for everything from like animal cruelty to just like queer rights and visibility and like just being comfortable with your sexuality and everything in between was so like it just so paved the way for so many artists now. And I think it was so important. And I remember growing up and I remember the stupid incel discourse on Twitter that like people did not like and appreciate what she was doing. And like everyone had a problem. And of course, like unfortunately that like misogyny still exists, but like less so now because of like the things Gaga did then and like the way she was willing to be outspoken and like almost martyrize herself in certain like circumstances. And I just think it's awesome. And all that is just the context. Like all that like the album itself is so good. Like I firmly believe that there's no better opening five songs than the first five songs of The Fame. Like it's sincerely like it just doesn't get better. Like Just Dance, Love Game, Paparazzi, Poker Face, and Nothing I Can Say. I will challenge anyone to name me like a better like opening five songs to an album. And like even like there's so many pockets that are just so impactful in the album. Like there's the sonics of Just Dance is like Just Dance is sampled maybe like 1,000 times a year on TikTok bootlegs, and people are still remixing it, and it still trends up once a year. Love Game is like so catchy. It's more on like the conventional or pop side of at the time, but like Paparazzi was like that Timbaland style production, but like a little bit up in tempo and like huge. It just like you see artists like Tate McRae doing that song that like balances pop and dance and like the Y2K mid-tempo bouncy Timbaland sound really well now before it really had a chance to mature, but like Gaga did a fully matured version of it in 2008. Um and yeah, that's what I'd say. Like, I just love the album. I think it is so good. Like Money Honey, The Fame, the visuals were so incredible from the whole album. And like, yeah, I just remember even just Gaga's looks at the time were mind blowing. And it's like, it's one of those things that reminds you how much you love music and reminds like I think there was this era of music that really bored me, like when everything was trying to be minimal and like I think it was like peak COVID era and like pop became really sad and it was a reflection of the times and I really felt like maximalism was dying and it was really sad to see because like I grew up on Gaga, Katy Perry, Kesha, like a lot of that stuff was so maximalism coded and I still like through this whole Tommy rollout, funnily enough, right? Like I have gone back to the Fame so many times, and like in moments of where we're doing something controversial or risky or risque, like I always it's like WWGD, like what would Gaga do? Like just it that's like been such a guiding light, and like when we're trying to walk into the fire, like we walk into it head first. And I think no one is more emblematic of that than Lady Gaga. And I think like the strongest debut album ever. Like um but yeah, that's kind of my shtick on the Fame.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's like I will admit coming into the interview, like I mean, of course I've heard the hit singles from this like a ton over the years, but didn't necessarily know about like the creation of the album and all that stuff. And it was interesting because of course her record label at the time was the Cherry Tree Music Company, and which is led by a guy named Martin Kierszenbaum, and I'm familiar with him because he now looks after Sting.
Yep.
And I did,
Martin, I just wanted to shout out Martin also manages this kid Chance Emerson, who I've known since middle school. Literally cannot hype up Chance enough. He is one of the greatest songwriters I've ever met, and you mentioned Martin, who is such a legend. But shout out Chance Emerson.
yeah,
I want to put that name out there so it's like on the record when he's like the next Noah Kahan or whatever in 10 years. Like I want it to be said. But sorry,
yeah.
carry on.
Yeah. Well, I was just saying I did an interview with Sting's guitarist Dominic Miller earlier this
Awesome.
year. So yeah, like a little connection there with Martin. But he also Martin co-wrote probably I would say my favorite song off of this record, which is AA. Nothing else I can say. And I like that one because it feels kind of 80s and has sort of a throwback sound, I would say. So yeah, do you have a like favorite song from this record?
I
Or
think it's changed maybe 15 times over the last 17 years at this point. Damn
yeah.
it. 17 years is crazy to say out loud. It like reminds me I'm getting old, but currently, maybe it's just because it's like resurgent on TikTok a little bit this year, and I know it's one of the hits, but I've like really had a newfound appreciation for paparazzi, which I don't think I loved as much back in the day, as far as like the hits went. Um, but lately I've had that on repeat. And when I say that, I mean there's full car rides where I will put on paparazzi on loop and just keep listening to paparazzi because I think it's just one of those songs where like that sound is so hot now. Like everyone's trying to do the Y2K thing, and like people have tried from Tate to the Kid Leroy to whatever. Like she did it so well, and she didn't do it in like this like saccharine or like didn't try to sample like too much ethnic stuff to pull the bounce in. It was just so well made, and it was such a it's like pop perfection to me. Um, so I'd probably say yeah, right now again it's changed about 10 times, but lately I'd be lying if I didn't say paparazzi. Like I've had that song on like it's if I pulled up my Apple Music right now, it's probably my most listened to song of the year.
Yeah, yeah. And I think like to kind of end it off, I think the one thing that I can like appreciate about Lady Gaga is of course like, in this day and age there's definitely or I think there can be maybe like not there can be people in pop music who aren't like genuine or are manufactured and that sort of thing, but Lady Gaga can sing. I mean,
Oh yeah.
she did on the Rolling Stones most recent album. I think it came out like a year or two ago. Was featured on one of the songs there, and it's like, yeah, there's no that's straight ahead rock and roll, and she was doing just fine with that. So I think like she's a very diverse musician for sure.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's what separates Gaga from everyone else is like her range is insane, and it's like all underpinned by really 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 awesome musicianship more than anything. Like there's it's one thing to have an album that's awesome as a result of, and I rep writers and producers, I really believe this. There's some albums that fall into the territory of like really really good music and are underpinned by the world's best writers and producers, and then there's albums that fall into the category of art that are underpinned by really stellar musicianship and vision by the artist. I think Gaga falls into the latter category, and like every album she's done does. Like Born This Way, like Joanne, like it's all really her. Like even Mayhem just now is like almost like a greatest hits reel of sound. Um, Her range is crazy. It's just it's bar none. And like she just did. I'm blanking. I suck at song titles. I'm so sorry. But she just did the record. I think it's like If the World Was Ending, but with Bruno Mars, the
Yeah.
duet. Like that's the same artist. Like you play that if you like go back in time and like found someone who was alive pre Gaga and like we were in say we're in like 1998 and I played them like let's say Paparazzi, um, Love Game, Shallow, and then like Abracadabra, and then like the Bruno Mars duet. Like I don't think they'd physically be able to comprehend that range on one
Mhm.
artist. Like it's insane, and like also the way she has the volition at this point of her career when she's accomplished and done everything, like to still keep reinventing herself and like the her tour is like I like I've seen clips. It's so cool, and like she's still giving it 110%. Like obviously Paris choreographed and creative directed it, and like she's a genius in her own right. But like the fact that she's still pushing herself and not phoning it in and doing a greatest hits tour at this point in her career is like she's an artist. Like she's the reason people like me want to get up out of bed every day and like support artists. But yeah, shout out Lady Gaga.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. All right, Ruchir. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to come on to the podcast today. It was great to learn about your career and what you got going on. And I guess what's something that the listeners can look forward to that you're involved with that's in the works, but maybe out sometime this year.
I mean, I think we literally just announced it while we were on this call. But Tommy Genesis is going on a one night only run. We're not doing a full tour. We want to just start by intimate audiences and performances. It's her first time back live touring an album in so long. And we are doing 4 cities. Go to her Instagram. It should be there at this point. They was literally, I think, announced maybe a little bit ago, but yeah, we're doing 4 cities, huge underplays. Get tickets before they sell out. The point is to be intimate. Tommy will be performing in a way she literally never has in her career so far, and I'm super excited for that. I want to shout out my guy Jack Riley, who's working on the Cameron Whitcomb album right now, which is such an incredible body of work. And I can't like Jack executive produced the whole thing top to bottom, and it's masterful. Um, and yeah, I think those are the two immediate things that are coming up that I'm super excited about.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Guess That Record. Make sure to leave a 5-star review wherever you listen and tell your friends to check us out. I want to shout out our radio partners currently airing Guess That Record as a syndicated show: CKMS in Kitchener, Ontario, CKXU in Lethbridge, Alberta, and South Devon Sound in Kingsbridge, UK. So if you're in those markets, be sure to check those stations out to hear the show. If you're with a radio station and you'd be interested in adding Guess That Record to your programming, send us an email to guessthatrecordpodcast@gmail.com. We'd also appreciate it if you'd follow us on Instagram and TikTok, where our username on both platforms is @GuessThatRecord. And lastly, subscribe to our YouTube channel to see the video versions of these amazing interviews. Remember to keep rocking, and we'll see you on the next episode of Guess That Record.